This is part 2 of our Q&A video where we asked our TikTok followers to ask us any questions that they had. This is going to cover the rest of the questions in the video. There's about 15 to 20 questions in this one, so strap in. It's a longer video. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't and drop a like if you enjoy these kinds of videos. I'll run more in the future if you guys do enjoy them. Otherwise, enjoy. Another longtime member of the channel, Nick Ransbottom, asks, I'm working on a consistent downswing and constantly slowing the ball down. Any tips? So bowling is always interesting because it is actually a game, in my opinion, slightly biased because I'm 6'6", but it's a game really made for shorter bowlers. Being taller is tough because you have longer arms then, and then you get more speed on the bowling ball when your arms are a little bit longer. Makes it a little bit tougher because you need slower ball speed to get that ball to pick up. So Nick, I'm assuming you're taller, but even if not, you are consistently trying to have to slow the ball down. That is a very tough thing in bowling. The number one tip is footwork always determines your ball speed. The slower your feet are, the slower your ball speed usually is. But you also don't want to use muscle. That's a very important thing. You're going to see that as a common theme with a lot of bowling questions is you want to make sure that swing is very free and very smooth. You don't want to be getting to the top of your backswing, getting to the top and then pulling down because that's going to add a lot of muscle, inconsistency, and also adds a bunch of speed. So that can also be a problem with your inconsistent downswing is that you're getting to the top of the swing and then pulling the ball down. You want that ball to feel like it's free floating. You want it to not feel like you're pulling anything. You want the ball's weight to be doing all of the work. All right, next up, we have Jared5590 asking, how long have you been bowling? So I've been bowling for about 10 to 12 years now. However, consistently and competitively, I've been bowling for about 7 to 8 years right now. So right now I'm 27 years old and I did bowl a little bit as a kid and a little bit as a teenager. My uncle did own a bowling alley, but I was mainly in baseball and basketball. So I stayed with those two sports all the way through high school. And then once I got to college, I wasn't playing those sports anymore. And then I needed something because I'm an insanely competitive guy, highly competitive. So I needed something to feed that competitive side of me. And that's where bowling really came in. So I started getting a little more serious about bowling. I was getting some bowling balls from my uncle who was on Brunswick staff at the time, and then was really trying to pick up getting into tournaments, getting into leagues, things like that. So it's really been 10 to 12 years of just bowling in general, but competitive bowling has been about 7 to 8 years. Next question up is from Ruben Emma Gomez saying how to get more revs. So getting more revolutions on a bowling ball is one of the very tough things in the game, but very satisfying when you can. The simple answer to this and the main thing you should work on is getting your hand more behind the bowling ball. So I'm going to use a Pokeball as an example that I had behind me. So assume this is a bowling ball. Right now, when you're releasing it, your hand might be a little too far on top of the bowling ball, and it's very hard to get revolutions on a bowling ball when your hand is here. Versus you need that hand to be a little more underneath the bowling ball when you release it, because the way you increase revs is your fingers go through the bowling ball, and the longer the fingers go through the bowling ball, the more revolutions you add to it. So on your release, if you notice your thumb is pointing towards the ground, you're not going to have many revolutions. You need that thumb pointing to the pins or even above the pins on release, and then flicking through it like a yo-yo, and that's going to be able to increase your revs. Next one up, we have a bowling ball specific question from Jacob Robinson asking, what do you think of the Ebonite real-time bowling ball and throwing it in league? So watching the real-time being thrown a little bit more, I'm noticing a lot of people are picking it up more and more, especially for league, because it is a shiny, solid bowling ball. So it does exactly what you need in a league, especially if you're more rev dominant, because it's going to be able to get through the first 30 to 40 feet of the lane without hooking too early and losing energy, but it's still going to be smooth enough down lane where you're going to have a lot of good carry. One specifically I've seen lately is AJ Chapman has been throwing this a ton. I think he had 800 with it, not positive. I'm pretty sure he had a 300 though. And the ball motion is gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. So this real time is a really good league ball. Sport shot ball might be 50-50, but league ball, it is very good right now, especially with the shine on it. Going over to the next person, we have Sugar Shane asking, I'm a beginner bowler two-hander. My revs are high, and whenever I try looking for a ball, I mainly see one-handers throw it. What do I do? Well, Shane, the really good thing is two-handers and one-handers throw the ball the exact same way. Your revolutions are just higher, and you're what we deem as a rev-dominant bowler. So you're just gonna, anyone who throws with a lot of revs, you're gonna be able to fit with. So bowling balls don't roll different for two-handers versus one-handers. They roll the exact same no matter what. You're still rolling a bowling ball with one hand. That second hand is just there to guide it. So don't worry about only watching videos with two-handers. If you watch ones with one-handers, the ball will roll very similar. You just have higher revolution, so you're going to want weaker bowling balls. You're going to want vibes. You're going to want hustles. You're going to want hammer raws. You're going to want max thrills from Motive, things like that. We're going over to another longtime member of the channel, Daz, asking Purple Hammer versus Phaze 2, two goats of the game. How do they compare in terms of pin reaction? So you are 100% right. These are arguably the two best bowling balls on the market today and on the PBA Tour in general. The difference is the Purple Hammer is going to be the best urethane ball and the best starting ball on any pattern under 42-ish feet. The Purple Hammer is just an absolute freak of nature when it comes to any kind of sport shot, because urethane makes your ball reaction just consistent and the same, and you have a lot of pocket control. And if you have high enough revs, the Purple Hammer can carry a bunch of stuff, and you can average very high when the pattern is really, really tough. So that's where the Purple Hammer fits in. But the minute that you have to start moving left or that ball reaction goes away, the Purple Hammer is not good anymore because it is a urethane bowling ball. So while it is one of the GOATs, it is really just an early game ball for playing straighter. Now, there are some freaks of nature who can play it from super deep on the lane, and it's crazy to see. But most people, it will be just a ball for straighter, for harder sport patterns. Now, the Phaze 2 is arguably the most versatile bowling ball of all time, where like the urethane ball, you can play it from straight on some patterns, or you can swing the entire lane with it. That is also possible. So that's where the Phaze 2 really excels, is it's a much more versatile piece, and that's why it's in our medium and smooth category. Can fit a lot of different spots, and you can really build a bag around it. Where the Purple Hammer is a separate tool because it's urethane in the entire grand scheme of things. Joe asks a really important question of, I throw 14 pounds thinking of going to 15. Is there a big difference going to 15? And long story short, very little some of the time. So let's first start with just the weight in general. The difference between 14 and 15 pounds isn't that extreme when you think about it. It's just 1 pound, but you will be throwing the ball a little bit slower and possibly with a few less revs. I always recommend going to 15. 15 is just scientifically one of the best weight to be at. There isn't much of a difference between 14, 15, 16 in terms of pin carry, but in general, 15 pounds is going to be the biggest norm. It's going to be the easiest to find bowling balls in that weight. Overall, I think it's going to be best. So weight-wise, you'll notice your speed go down just a little bit, but I think your body gets used to it. It'll get a little stronger, and you'll be throwing it the same as you did 14. Now, in terms of bowling balls, most cores are going to be fairly similar between 14, 15, and 16 pounds. Storm's new AI system causes the cores to be nearly identical at all three weights a lot of the time, but that is something you really need to keep track of because some bowling balls are radically different between 14 pounds and 15 pounds. So it's good to check the core numbers. I have a video explaining all the core numbers for you, but make sure you look at them on 15 pounds compared to your old 14-pound equipment. Next one up is an interesting username of Bryce Spanks of 2LS versus dual angle for two-handers. Now, starting off, I highly recommend Storm's 2LS layout system for all two-handers. It is the most scientifically proven right now to work. Dual angle can work. It is not as specific in my opinion and doesn't work as well for two-handers. It was a system designed for one-handers with a center of grip in your palm. It does convert over to two-handers, just in my opinion, not as well. The layouts are a little bit weirder, and the two-handers who have had the most success use 2LS layout system. It just by far and away is better. So I recommend 2LS, but Brunswick does have a really good converter from their new deviate scale to dual angle, where they use the same numbers that Storm does to a certain degree, but it converts them over to dual angle. It's mainly for pro shops to use, but could be good for you also. But in general, 2LS is more scientifically proven, specifically made for two-handers, and there really aren't any other layout systems that are made for that. Next question is actually a very, very fun question from just A. What do you think of the Sunstorm LE? Is it good for balanced bowlers? So for people who didn't know, a couple years ago, Storm came out with a limited edition release, similar to what Motive does right now with the EJ balls, but this one was for the old Sunstorm. And what they did is they used that same C3 centripetal core, which is now the IQ core, but they put spec cover stock on it. At the time, spec was the smoothest and dullest cover stock on the market. It was super weird cover stock. It was on one of the Cruxes at the time. I think it was the Crux Prime. And the cover stock was super weird. The colors faded very quickly, especially after you resurfaced it or you put some water on it. The cover stock didn't last very long before they axed it and made NEX, which was the evolution of it. So the Sunstorm LE was a very weird, absurdly strong cover with an absurdly weak core. No one really threw it on much. It was good for short patterns, but that was really about it. Now, the bowling ball is insanely expensive, so if you haven't drilled it, you can probably get a good couple $100 for it if you sell it. But in general, it wasn't the greatest bowling ball. It was mainly just a gimmick to call back on some of their old greats. And next we have Alex Cardy asking a fun question of what's the best big shiny Asym on the market right now? So we just came out with our top 5 strong and sharp bowling balls of the year, and the Track Theorem won that fight. Number 2 was the Rotogrip Attention Star. So these are, in my opinion, the top 2 shiny, strong, asymmetrical pearl balls on the market. There are amazing ones all over the place though from all of the companies. The One Reverb, incredible right now. Intense Mindset, amazing. Like I mentioned, Attention Star, Virtual Energy Blackout, one of the best tournament balls you can have. From Motive, you have that new Raptor Rush that looks really good. You have a ton of great bowling balls in this list. Any of those will really be good, but in my opinion, the Track Theorem is still number 1. Next up, we're going to Liam Phylan1 asking, do ball fragrances cause allergies? Now, I am not a health expert in any way, shape, or form, and I have not contacted Storm to answer this question, but from everything I know, the answer is no. If you are highly sensitive to scents in general, then I would be a little bit worried about these, but the scent does go away with a little bit of a resurface. They can go away pretty quickly. But in general, no, they should not cause allergies, especially if you're like, if it's an orange scent and you're allergic to oranges. No, they don't use oranges for that actual scent. It's all artificial stuff. If you're generally allergic to artificial fragrances of any kind, then you might need to be a little bit worried. I would recommend staying away from the Storm bowling balls, but Rotogrip and 900 Global bowling balls do not have fragrances at all. So then I would stick towards those. But in general, if you have no problems with any kind of artificial fragrances, you should be good to go. All right, we're going to have some fun with this question. So Jaluma09 asks the really fun question of what's the worst USBC rule? And then what is something that should be a rule? So I'm going to get really controversial. Apologies in advance. So the worst USBC rule, I stand firmly behind Bill O'Neill that the foul line rule is the dumbest thing in bowling. Like, yes, I understand there should be a foul line, and I understand there needs to be a spot where you stop sliding, but you get zero competitive advantage if you cross that line by an inch or two. So I don't think there should be a penalty for going past the line. I believe a buzzer should still go off. I'm all good with that, but I don't think you should get a 0 if you slightly cross that line. It really doesn't give you any competitive advantage. That extra inch of release doesn't do anything. So I'm a firm believer that getting rid of that being a 0, making fouls a 0, should 100% be a thing. Get rid of it. Make sure the foul line's still there, of course, but we don't need to get a 0 for a shot where we cross the line by half of an inch. Now to the controversial one. What is something that should be a rule? I am actually a very big advocate towards the PBA's hardness rule. I really like their urethane hardness rule because urethane balls got really out of control for a couple years there where they were insanely soft. And I know there's a ton of college players and a ton of amateurs and things like that who still have their old purple hammers from years and years ago that are softer than any bowling ball you could ever imagine. So I really like the hardness rules that are coming out. I think the PBA really did it right because that's really what urethane balls are good for. They're a tool that you should use when you need to on harder sport shots. But the purple hammer and other urethane balls really can be used from anywhere when they're soft enough. This used to be a problem back in the early days of PBA where people would dump a bunch of acetone or they'd be flushing their bowling balls in toilets to make them softer, to make them hook more, because that's what making a softer bowling ball does. And that does give you a competitive advantage where you can't get those older urethane bowling balls anymore. So it's not the most fair thing to somebody just getting into the game, getting smoked by somebody that has a ball from 2017 that they can't even buy anymore. So I'm a really big advocate that the PBA hardness rule should be in the USBC. Man, this next one is going to get some hate comments, but that's all right. We have Lil Skilliot asking least favorite bowling ball brand. This one's hard. So I'm going off the 11 major bowling ball brands. I'm keeping Swag and California Bowling out of this. Out of the 11 major brands, my least favorite, the one that I throw the least, the one that I see being thrown the least right now, really is Columbia 300. Unfortunately, they haven't had many bangers coming out over the last year. I don't know if I even included them on my top 5 lists anywhere. So unfortunately, they have been one of the weaker companies of the year. Very disappointing. They've had some really good balls in the past. One of my favorite balls of all time, the Columbia 300 Spoiler, actually came from them. That was my short shot, amazing bowling ball. Came out like 5 years ago. Got it from Mileto Monicelli, which was kind of cool. But in general, I think C300 just really doesn't have much going for them right now. Hopefully they come out with some bangers next year, but right now they are the lowest on the list. Next one on the list is going to be Wade 7878 for best balls for speed dominant and lower rev bowlers for a mid oil house shot. So for a mid oil house shot, speed dominant bowlers are going to like some of the weaker asymmetrics or stronger symmetric balls. So balls in this list are going to be things like the Attention Star S2. You're going to have things like the Phaze 2, Sublime Focus. You're going to have the Pride Dynasty or the Emotive Evoke. You're going to have things like the Hazmat Solid, the Game Breaker 5, even the Black Widow 3.0. You're going to want those stronger and smoother bowling balls because as someone who's more speed dominant, you need to find a way to get the ball to pick up. So those stronger bowling balls are really going to help you out there. This is actually a question that hits close to home right now from I'm Just Bored asking urethane versus plastic balls for spares. Which or why is it better? So I'm always going to be an advocate for plastic balls for your spares. I don't like flattening the hand to try to hit spares. I'm not a big fan of it. It is always easier to just mimic your form, but be able to just change your angles and throw a different bowling ball. But in general, as of this last weekend that I'm recording this, I actually had my plastic ball turbo sleeve pop out, so I had to throw urethane at spares, and it felt pretty good. I don't know why, but it felt great. So urethane is another great option. It helps you save a spot in your bag where most of the time you don't have to worry about that. But if you're someone like a college bowler, someone going to junior gold, or you're going to the USBC Open Championships, you do have a bowling ball limit. So then you do need to limit how many you have, and having the double whammy of the urethane ball for game 1 or on the fresh and also for your spares is very nice. So if you're in any of those realms, a urethane ball can work really well. For everybody else, I will always recommend a plastic ball. This one's kind of ironic because I mentioned this ball earlier in the video, but Tyler Whiteman asks, as a speed dominant player, I have a Crux Prime by Storm and a Purple Solid Reactive by Hammer. I'm going to be getting the Storm Phaze AI. I'm wondering what other balls should I might look into. I would like to stay with the SPI brands, and I'm a one-handed righty with medium revs. So right now, the Crux Prime was one of the strongest and smoothest bowling balls on the market at the time, still would be if it's being thrown. I don't see them very often. The ball's like 4 to 5 years old, but it still could easily be being thrown, like Tyler mentions. So that is going to be a strong and smooth ball, where the Purple Solid Reactive was a weak and smooth bowling ball. So that Phaze AI is going to fit in the medium sharp category. So that makes a really good 1, 2, 3 option for a 3-ball arsenal. Some other balls to look into next would be a stronger asymmetrical Pearl, something like an Attention Star, Virtual Energy Blackout. This is because he wants to stay with SPI, by the way, or even a Harsh Reality Pearl. On the medium smooth side, you have the GOAT of the Phaze 2, you have the Summit Ascent, might be a little close to the Purple Solid Reactive, probably not that close though. But you also have the Sublime Focus. So those would be 2 more categories that you can look into next. And our final question is from Daz, who asks, what balls are in your regular league bag? So right now, my league bag consists of the Hammer Effect Tour, the Scorpion Low Flare, and whatever pearl ball I want to bring for the week. That usually rotates between the Infinite Physics, the Web Pearl from Hammer, or some other just pearl balls that I drill up at the time. Those are usually my 3 top league options. Some other bowling balls I will sometimes bring. I have a Shiny Storm Asym that I like a lot, or I really do like my Phaze 2 for house shots. That one works really well also. So that's usually what's in my bag. Now, my ball roll really fits with solid bowling balls, so I usually don't need that many pearls, and if I do, I bring stronger pearls. Like some other bowling balls I've had success with in league in the past are the Rotogrip Halo Pearl was really good for me. Like I mentioned, the Infinite Physics was really good for me for a minute. The Altered Reality, the former Harsh Reality Pearl, was really good for me in league also. So those stronger asymmetricals if you're a little more of a balanced bowler, but otherwise a lot of solid bowling balls from me. And that will do it for all of our Q&A videos. Thank you everybody who asked questions over on TikTok. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you everybody who's shown so much support over the last couple of months for the channel. It means a ton to me. We are growing so fast for a bowling channel. Love every single one of you for helping out. We're going to be running more of these Q&A videos, but if you want more real-time answers, make sure to either drop a comment. I answer most comments. Shoot me an Instagram DM, a TikTok DM, or come join us on a live stream on Wednesdays around 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Come check us out there, and then you can ask any questions that you have, bowling or non-bowling related. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day. We will see you all in the next one.